Me parece que estamos live. I think we're live. I forgot we're going to do it in English.
Okay, English.
It's going to be in English. So we're going to wait a little bit for people to come in with us. I know that some people are going to be live and some people are going to be watching later. But since we have the cicadas outside, who are making a lot of noise, it's about nature. So do you hear us? That's good enough? Are you? Okay. I hope you can tell us if you can hear us.
Or you can talk louder than the cicadas.
Or you can talk, yeah, we're going to talk louder than the cicadas. I know there are people here from Costa Rica. There are people from, I see people from New York. And so people beginning to join us. Okay, we're having some reactions to the sound. So do you hear us better than the cicadas, or yes? It's not that we want to repress the cicadas, but we need you to hear us. Oh, here's your sister. So we have people from Argentina, from Chile, from the States, from Miami. So welcome everybody. New Jersey present. The sound is good. Thank you so much. Thank you for letting us know that the sound is good. So this is good. So I just want to say, you have two Marcelos for the price of one here, which is very unusual. And we are like a pod here in the Ecovilla, like a family pod. And that's where we are together. Usually these things are somebody, in one camera, the other one in the other screen. And we are together because we are like an extended family. And we share many things together as an extended family. And so that's why we are, in this case, literally sharing the screen live. So this conversation is about sustainability. It is about sustainability. It's about the paradigm shift that happens when you decide to live a sustainable life. And what does it mean to live a sustainable life? So let me introduce to my dear and beloved Marcelo Valansi. Marcelo Valansi is one of the visionaries in Costa Rica of sustainable living and the developer of the Ecovilla where we live. And we know each other for a long time. And Marcelo told us that he was doing this Ecovilla before even the Ecovilla existed. We went with him to see different pieces of land in Costa Rica. And he says, one day for retirement, you have to get a lot and buy a house. And so at the beginning it was about retirement, and then why retirement? It became a new model of life. For us, I'll talk about that in a moment. But Marcelo is at the forefront of this idea of sustainability. And Marce, I would like to really have a conversation with you about the past, the present, and the future. So where did you get this from? Where did it come from, the desire to live a different type of life? You grew up in Buenos Aires, you're a city person. So how this came to be?
first of all, thank you for inviting me to do a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live. This is something new for me. I'm not used to do these things, but
I think you have to speak louder.
It's a pleasure to do it with you. And part of, coming from a city like Buenos Aires and growing up in my own bubble, the only thing I knew is what I had back then. But part of, I felt there was something missing. I don't know what it was, but I felt I didn't belong there, that this is not the life I wanted, but I didn't know anything else. And part of that shift or discovery was by traveling around the world and learning about different ways of living. People like ancient communities, new communities that were forming, and learning about nature. Coming from a city, so many times we are disconnected from nature, and we don't know how important it is for our well-being, for our bodies, for our nature provides us with everything, from food, shelter, water. Everything comes from nature, and we are so dependent on nature. And being in a city, we have no awareness of it. We don't know where our food comes from. We don't know where our energy comes from, what the water that we consume. We are very disconnected from nature. And nature is that place that we go sometimes on vacation or a getaway for a few days, and we start feeling our bodies feeling so good, so peaceful, so connected. And it was discovering of saying, wow, this feels so good. It was the first time I really connected with nature. And being in Costa Rica, that nature is so intense, so lush, so beautiful. It's the first time in my life that I feel free, because I could have all the basics covered by being in nature. Suddenly I could produce my food, I had shelter, I had water, and a beautiful paradise that I was living in. And in that moment, the ingredient that was lacking was community. I was there in the middle of the jungle, living.
You're talking that moment when you were traveling.
When I was traveling.
And you traveled for how long?
I traveled for 3.5 years and visited many countries, many communities, very beautiful places. And then I settled in the South Caribbean of Costa Rica. And I was between the south of Costa Rica and the Panama side, between the Costa Rica side and the Panamanian side. They are beautiful islands. They are called Bocas del Toro, and between Manzanillo and Gandoca. And I was between the two places for a long time. And I was really like a mix of Tarzan and Robinson Crusoe, exploring and living this life so different to what I grew up with. But I was feeling, one day I would like to have a family. I would like to have elders around me. And it was an instinctive thing, something that I felt that was lacking in my life. I didn't know why, but I seek for a long time to find this community, and I look in many places. I travel, I look for communities. I wanted to see if I could join, and then I met my wife, and we traveled together to see if we could find that place. We traveled around the world for a year, visiting communities and see what works, what
That was
didn't
besides
work.
the 3.5 years.
Yes.
That was when you got married.
When I got married, and when I had the idea of building an eco-village, I said maybe building an eco-village is nothing, it's not an easy job. I said maybe it's better if I found one, it's much better to join one than start from zero and trying to build one when I had no idea what I was doing. So part of this education was looking if that place existed, and as well visiting all these communities and why they work or didn't work, what things work and why.
What did you learn?
I learned that pretty much so many times we try to reinvent the wheel and do things so different than we are used to it, and we complicate things so much that they don't end up working. And many times there were so many communities, like in India, in Europe, and where they said, you know, every single decision has to be made by consensus. And it's so hard to reach consensus where 100% of the people have to agree on every single thing. And there were subjects that they will go over and over and over again. And people were so tired to talk about the same thing that they would hate that one person sometimes that didn't agree, and the whole group couldn't move forward, and there were hours and hours and hours of discussion. And that's what really breaks communities and makes everybody wanting to kill each other instead of creating trust and connectivity, and so many things that you can, like all these invisible structures in community that happens when you put a group of people together. So, and at the same time, like I visit ancient communities that you could learn from them, like
who?
In the Kalahari Desert, the Kalahari people, whenever they made a decision, they think about how that decision affects their community 7 generations forward. Wow. And 7 generations backward, like how that would affect. And thinking about that, like we are so used to think for
climate change wouldn't be a problem if people would have thought like that.
Most likely no. I mean, but as humans we sometimes complicate things so much and say, let's say create a new language, a new currency, a new things, and when it's already there and making things much more complicated. So I said, why don't we start in a place like that we are used to it? So whenever I started building La Ecovia, I thought about, like, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and saying, let's not, like, there are so many communities that they said, no, we cannot not own land. We all are shareholders of a company, or nobody owns the land, and the land never gets, nobody gets things like that. And they try to do things in a very different way that people are not used to. Sometimes you cannot access to credit. And if you're gonna make one of the biggest investments of your life, like it's your home, you want to have some security that it will be yours for many years to come, and that you can inherit it to your kids, to your grandkids, and that it will be yours, that you can sell it, you can rent it. And sometimes we do it so differently that people, you know, they end up buying at very inexpensive prices to be part of some communities, and they don't want to invest any money on the house because it's not theirs, they don't own the land, or they cannot access the credit. And what happens is that those people cannot live there that cannot be their permanent residence. It's a vacation place, or it's a temporary place in a period on their lives. But many communities that, you know, some people, they said this is too hippie, or it's because there is no real investment in infrastructure, not real investment in things, and you can say, oh, it's fun to go there for a weekend, for a week, but not to live in a permanent basis.
So all this is a great segue to La Covilla. So that's the seed. All this search, all this desire, something is missing in my life. I don't want to make nature a place that I go on vacation. Nature is the place that we nurture our souls, not only our bodies. So then how this came to be?
So how it came to be as well is how can we, we have the perspective that in order to be living in nature, we have to live like cavemen. That's the only way, or like Tarzan and living in a tree and swinging. But in reality, it is possible to develop in a way that instead of destroying the land, as most of developers do, and you can regenerate the land. You can regenerate the soil, and whenever I'm involved in a project, I look for properties that have been damaged in the past with cow pastures, that they have cows, or they have monocultures that have been abused. And the first thing I do when I get involved in a project like that is start restoring the soil. And there is a very good documentary in Netflix.
It's fantastic.
Called Kiss the Soil that can give you more information about soil regeneration that you can learn. It's very well explained. And once you start restoring the soil and you can make a good infrastructure with water, sewage, electricity, food production, and suddenly you turn like a land that was dead into a beautiful oasis where you have regeneration of like a reforestation with native species, you have food forest, and you have food production. And depending how much energy you dedicate to that is how much you can be completely self-sufficient. If you dedicate a lot of energy into the food production and you are very flexible with your diet, you can grow all your food. You can provide all your energy with solar panels, wind, hydro, depending on the property where you are. And it's very important to work with the land. And whatever things we see as problems, how can we make it into a benefit? So suddenly, like in our culture, whenever we see a swamp, we see, oh, this is so bad for having a swamp. And you see cases like Israel or many other, like in Asia, in Indonesia, in China, the swamp is the most productive land. Wherever you have fish, you have rice, you have so much growing and happening in those areas. So it is how to turn that thing that we see as something, a problem, how we turn it into benefits. So how can, like here in Ecovia, for example, like the sewage, every time you flush the toilet, that thing, like what happens there in the cities or something, that becomes a problem in many islands in societies. Here all the sewage, black water, gray water, goes into a massive biodigester that not only treats all the water and the water comes completely clean, but also produces methane. And the methane has many uses that people can give, depending on as well how much you produce. It is a much productive system if you have animals involved in that process. So, it is I would say, building the systems of a village, it's not easy, but it's something that is doable. But the hardest thing to do whenever you build an eco-village, whenever you put a bunch of people together, is managing the human aspects of it. The egos, the personalities, how to prevent conflict, and if conflict arises, how to solve it. So those are the invisible structures in every community that is so important to work around it. And how can you make it that we can thrive? We are used to live in communities for thousands and thousands of years. We live in communities, bigger, smaller, and this thing of living in tall buildings, so separate from each other, sometimes not even knowing who our neighbor is, not even talking about big buildings, sometimes in the suburbs or in rural areas, we don't know who our neighbor is. And we are lacking that connection. People that really know what is going on with you, more than hi, goodbye, that you can say in the elevator, but really having true friends or a chosen family. And that's a key to really creating a community, is how to work around that and how creating those things that will take you to the next level.
I want to go back a little bit to, first of all, I understand what you're saying, because any eco-village would be an ego village. We have to go from the ego to the eco, and that's everywhere. You know, how do we move to the ecosystem and not to the ego system? But I remember because I was here when you started, and I remember why don't you tell the story about what you thought about the cables, how the electricity would be, the internet, why the type of internet that we have, why the yoga platform, why the rancho and the swimming pool, how these all ideas. I remember the discussions about having different swimming pools. I was part of that. Somebody wanted to have everybody to have a swimming pool. I said, no, that's not the type of community that I want to live in. So how do you envision these things?
So it is part of creating community. You want to create containers where people can meet, that they can socialize, that they can interact. And building that each house builds its own pool, it will make it that people would not leave their houses. They would want to stay in, and they would not have this social interaction that happens whenever we have beautiful communal buildings. That's where the magic happens. That's where the connection happens. That's whenever you start doing yoga, meditation, mindfulness, you start having potlucks, meals together, birthday parties, dance parties, and then you have a beautiful fire pit, and men and women start meeting around the fire and sharing stories, sharing how we are feeling. In our societies, as men, many times we don't have those spaces where we can really express our feelings, be vulnerable, and really share what is truly going on inside. And having a safe container in a community of friends, I can really know that it will be confidential what you are sharing. I will stay there, and it won't be kind of gossip, but also how can I help you? That's where you can really start connecting in a deeper level and creating that trust, that connection that I'm talking about. So it's all these things that happen, and at the same time, you have this community that you see them almost daily to all these people, at least before the COVID, and there were so much activities going on all the time. Birthday parties, yoga, and everybody wanted to share their gifts. They feel that they were receiving so much that say, how can I give back? And that's when this gifting economy start happening, and suddenly you feel, wow, I'm getting all this, not only from this talented, diverse group of people that live around me, but all their friends that come, their guests, that they want to share their gifts with our community. And that's where it takes you to another level of growth and connection and evolution. But not only like that's the community aspect, but as well it's this possibility of living in nature, because we are surrounded, we see every day, we see monkeys and toucans and all kinds of animals passing by, and at the same time we have air conditioning in many of the houses. It was the first residential project in Costa Rica to have fiber optic to the home. So that allowed many years ago that we can all work from home. We didn't need
before COVID.
Way before COVID. That's why there were so many people already before COVID that were able to do work from home. It wasn't the majority as now. So many people around the world, they have the gift. For some, they are desperate for if they are in an area where they cannot leave their house and they live in a small apartment, they don't have a place where kids can run and be free. And so it's having the opportunity to work and be able to go out of your house and walking down and going to a beautiful crystal clear river and going into these pools and getting out and collecting the fruits and eat them fresh from the trees, or having interaction in this bigger social bubble and interact with your neighbors and have the possibility of really having that connection, that we are really, even in a moment so serious that we are living right now with COVID around the world and so many people locked down, I feel that having a community like this in nature makes it much more resilient than the majority of places.
You're saying something also by saying that. You're saying that sustainability, nature and comfort not necessarily are contradictory.
Not only they are not contradictory, they have to go hand by hand in order to be the mainstream. And in Ecovia, we were able to show that it's possible to combine regeneration, resilience, nature, and comfort all together. And that's all those ingredients make it an attraction for families from so many different countries, so many different ages, different backgrounds. And as well, we had many kids that
so that's a great segue to Casasula. Tell us about this, can I call it school? It's this unschooling school, which is a fascinating project.
So Casasula began in January, February 2016. And some neighbors here, way before they had kids, they went as backpackers to Ecuador, and they saw this place, this beautiful school in the rural area outside Quito that was called the Pestalozzi. And they met these guides that they were there, and they connected with us. They came here to advise us. We wanted to start a school, we didn't know how, and as we had many parents and many personalities, it was so many cooks in the kitchen, and we really didn't know. We knew that we wanted to educate our kids in a different way, but we had no idea how. So these people from Ecuador, they closed, the owners of the schools were a couple Swiss-German, and they started this school in the 70s. So for 30-something years, they had hundreds and hundreds of kids that right now they are in their 30s and 40s, that they graduate from this education, and they are amazing human beings and very functional human beings, and they went through a very different education that most of us had. I remember growing up in Buenos Aires and hating going to school.
Really?
Really. It was for me one of the biggest tortures and having to wake up in the mornings and during the winter having to go there into school and being there for so many hours trying to memorize and repeat, and I said there is something very wrong with this, and I knew when I had my kids I didn't want them to have to go through that. And when I met my wife, I remember telling her, one day I have kids, I'm not going to send them to school. And she says, you better find another way, because I'm not going to be doing homeschooling. So part of that was, okay, let's find, and so this couple connect me with these people from Ecuador, and we end up saying, let's build a school in Costa Rica. And there was a property that is very near to here. It's a property that is about 700-800 acres with the same river that passes through here. It's incredible. It has ocean views. It used to be a petting zoo. So there are all kinds of animals that they are ponies in that property that the kids get to take care of and ride, and they walk around the property. They have the possibility of going to the river, and it is a school without classrooms, without teachers, without tests, and without homework. So for me it's like, wow, this is a dream come true, but how do you do this? And it's incredible. Like, everybody that thinks about that, they think this is more like Lords of the Fly, that is a chaos, but they truly have a very, very good structure, and they have very clear limits.
And rules. Very clear rules.
And they have stations of carpentry, cooking, math, science, biology, all the things that we learn in school and much more. Useful skills that we usually learn the hard way in life, and some of us, we never learn them.
But the philosophy, it's very clear. So can you explain in just one sentence the essence of the philosophy of Casasula?
The philosophy is that we all have inside all that we need. It is how you connect to that essence, through allowing us to discover the world, connecting without
discover the world from that place.
From that place of connection, of being connected to that, of really having the possibility to learn how to manage your time, what are your feelings, what are your thoughts, having critical thinking, having so many skills that we do not learn in the traditional school, and they are so important for lives.
I remember when I suffer in school because I learned later in life that I'm dyslexic. So that's why I suffered a lot, and there was no concept of dyslexia in those days in elementary school in Argentina, at least in my school. So I asked Edgar, one of the leaders here of the school, so what would have been my issue in Sula if I would have come to Sula? He said it wouldn't have been an issue. It's just you learn differently, that's all. And every kid learns differently. So,
yeah, so many times we are in school, and maybe you are not ready. Your neurons are not, they haven't made the synapses or something to make that connection yet. And because you are not ready, they tell you, they label you, that you're not good for
Yes.
certain things, you're not good for math, you're not good for this, you're not, and the thing is, you might not be ready at that moment, but that doesn't mean that you're stupid or you're not good at it, and it's those labels that really haunt us for so many years and make us feel, okay, I cannot do this because I'm not good at it. But whenever you don't have the fear that someone is going to come and tell you you're useless, you're not good, or you're not, then it's, you start failing and learning and failing and learning, and it is...
That's the torture. And this would have saved me a lot of years of therapy and money just to learn that. So the kids learn from the root. Sula means the spirit of the seed, correct?
The meaning, Sula is in Bribri, that is a native Costa Rican language, and means the spirit guardian of the seed. So pretty much we feel that as this essence that they bring, as if you have a seed and you give them the right environment, that seed is going to grow healthy. You don't need to do anything to it. As long as you give them what they need, they will grow. Some faster, some slower, but they will all grow. We don't need to add chemicals, and we talk about free-range organic food, free-range chickens, and this.
What about free-range children?
Free-range children, exactly. That's exactly the point. So it's so important that they can learn in a different way, and that whenever they come back to Ecovia, to their community, they are kids that they can run around free. They go out with their bicycles, they climb trees, they go into nature. They're kids that are connected to that essence, that they can know what they want. And it's so pleasant to speak to all these kids, that they can look to you in the eyes, they can tell you what they think, they can challenge you. And it's amazing to have kids like that.
Yes, I remember when in one of the trips with Karina, we were invited to participate in one of the assemblies. So the kids have assembly when they discuss issues, and the assembly is run by the kids. And these were really, really young kids. And they were talking about some hurt feelings. And they don't talk about punishments. They don't use the word punishment, they talk about consequences. So what are the consequences of your actions? And there was one little girl, very young girl, leading older kids in saying to another child, no, but you hurt her feelings. You cannot do that. And I said, are we with Karina? We were like, doing like this to each other, like, wow. And I'm saying, wow, you can learn this from early times in life. So this is...
Yeah, I mean, and in this assembly that are run by the kids, they choose a president and a secretary. The president runs the assembly, the secretary takes notes, and they talk about the news, all the things that's going to happen during the week, and then they talk about the things that they like, kind of giving gratitude. And then they talk about the things they would like, and the guides take notes about the things they would like to do. And finally, one second. And finally, they talk about the things they don't like. And everything that they said that they don't like, they have to come up with a solution. And not only they give they make from there, they come the rules, they also enforce it. So if any of their friends are not following whatever they agree, they are making them accountable for it. So as an adult, they don't have to be telling them, hey, you're not doing this or that. And it's truly an amazing education, and I cannot be happier to have my kids going through that. And you know, for me, it's been the moment that I finished building my house in Ecovilla. Was almost 8 years ago. 8 years or more, yeah, 8.5 years ago. My wife, she got diagnosed with cancer, and having the opportunity to have a supportive community being with us all the time, helping us with the kids, with therapies, with research, with ideas, which make a big difference than whenever you are alone and you have to go through a hard moment in life. And we all go through hard moments in life, like it or not. A disease, a separation, economic crisis. There are so many things that can go like that we experience. And having the opportunity to have community, to have nature, and the kids to have their emotional support through a school like this, and having chosen family around you, it truly makes it that I said this is something so special, and this is the way we all should be living. We should really go back to finding that community where we belong. How can we take care of our planet? How can we produce more resources than we take? How can we educate our kids in a different way? We cannot be, if we want things to change, we cannot be doing the same things over and over again, because we will get the same results. And so for me, COVID, it was the same time last year, like when COVID started and my wife died. And I was able to have so much love and so much support in my life. And it truly make it like, you know, I could be a victim and I could stay home depressed and not wanting to go out, or I have the opportunity to make a change, and I'm feeling that it is an opportunity for more people to live in a different way. And this is where I felt called right now with my time, however long I have in this earth, that I would like to see as many eco-villages and schools like this grow all over.
So I want to just for a moment to say Sol, Marcelo's wife, was a dear, beloved friend. She was, besides a neighbor, a friend, she was the movement teacher of the retreats that I organized with my former community, Benediction, that I brought here for 10 years. And she was the teacher, so our people here who are connected, who had a blessing of experiencing her. So I want to say, may she rest in peace. And Sol was so much also the spirit that she put here. So I want to make this small tribute to her. I just want to say also that through Instagram or Facebook, if there are people who want to ask questions, Karina will be able to feed us if there are questions that you want to ask. And I want to now, what you said about eco-villages, because I mean, you spoke about community. I lived in communities all my life and I built communities. But you're talking about the community plus the environment plus nature. So I I want to talk about the future, because we live, I would say, one of the most serious issues that we have on the earth in this moment is climate change. I mean, this is of devastating proportions. People say Cristiana Figueres, who is a Costa Rican who wrote an incredible book about sustainability and who was one of the architects of the Paris Accords. She says, you know, that this is just a rehearsal of what could happen because of the devastation that climate change could bring. So this is really a very, very, very serious issue. So you talk about creating more eco-villages. So what is in your mind in this moment? What other projects are you thinking about? Because I see people in Costa Rica call you for different things. I know that about national parks, they're talking about eco. So first of all, personally, as a developer, what are you thinking and what is also happening in the rest of the country?
So I mean, what is happening is since COVID started, so many people that were living in cities, they realized that there was so much that they were lacking by feeling all the benefits of living in a city, the cultural parts, the excitement and everything was not happening. And at the same time, like things that we see happening in places like Texas right now, like in a city that because of climate change, like they were not used to having the temperatures that they have, and people were having enormous problems, people dying because they were not prepared to so extreme temperatures. So it's that brought so much awareness and the exposure we had, because different medias from TED to Netflix, they put some parts of Ecovilla out there, and people were in lockdowns in cities, in their houses and suddenly they saw, wow, it is possible to live in a different way that we are not aware of. As I was living in a city and I didn't know that there was other ways. This was a wake-up call for people to really take those times, take those moments, and discovering that there are alternatives. It's not that we don't have to keep living the same way that we were used to. So suddenly, right now, we've been getting thousands and thousands of emails from people around the world in La Ecovilla and in Casasula, that they are looking for alternatives. So
are you going to build more?
So right now I'm focusing on building as many ecovillas as fast as possible. So I put together a group of incredible professionals, incredible people in different fields, from building this infrastructure and the invisible structures and make it happen as fast as possible to supply an unmet demand, because these communities do not exist. And right now, there is so much interest from mainstream developers in start building eco-villages and start building in a different way, that I'm getting inquiries from all over the world. So I would love to train more people that can help in this mission, because there is only so much you can do.
And also, it's one thing is to have the idea, to have to envision something. Another thing is to put it in concrete. But there is some talk around, the toucans are talking that in the huge piece of land where the school is, there's going to be a development. Is that true?
It is true. We are we just finalized a verbal agreement with the owner of the property to make it happen over there, and we're gonna start very soon with the design of this incredible project. It's a very exciting and ambitious project.
Why? It's bigger than this?
Yes, it is way bigger. The Ecovia is 50 acres, and this property is 700 to 800 acres. So it is.
So a few more eco villas. How many there?
I'm not sure how many yet, but I learned what is the sweet spot whenever you build an eco village. There, like if you make it too big, you lose that.
Absolutely.
That thing, and you become a number. You know, like really knowing your neighbor, that container that we were talking about. So it will be a few eco villages of 40, 50 homes, more or less. And there is so many people that they've been inquiring for some time, and so many people that they've been wanting to put down the money before it exists, that I'm sure it will go super fast, but we are working to
still in the early stages. And you mentioned once in a conversation that also Costa Rica as a country, besides this project, is interested in building eco-village around the parks. Did I hear correctly?
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend that is part of the board of directors of the National Parks Foundation. It's the foundation that bought all the national parks in the country, that represents a huge amount of land. It's about 50% of the land in Costa Rica. It's the national park.
50% of the country is protected.
It's protected. And much of this land was bought by this foundation, and it's all over the country. And they contact me about creating eco-villages around the national parks in the country, in the land outside. There are many cow farms that the owners are very upset because they have wildlife that comes and kills the cows, and that the value of their properties went down because they cannot do many things because they have restrictions. So we are exploring the idea to connect development with conservation. And the idea behind it is, how can we regenerate more land, having people that really care about the environment, and having the national parks to be their extended garden, and they will be like park rangers,
yes.
So not only they will be park rangers, they will also have the possibility to create part of the profits to purchase more land for conservation, reforestation, making the national parks more beautiful. So we are looking at things, how can it be a win-win for...
Beautiful. So let's do so. I just want to make a comment, and I will ask Karina to feed us just by voice. Karina is my wife, for those of you who don't know her. And but I just want to say, because we talk about paradigm shift, and I just want to say, you know, Karina and I moved from New York, and we love New York. You know this T-shirt, I love New York. Hello, we love New York, and we lived in New York, and we lived in Buenos Aires. I lived in Santiago, Chile. Karina lived in Miami, and places that I call home, and my community, you know, in different places, especially in this case in New York, is a place that I love, and I know that I have this craving all the time to be in nature. You know, Central Park became my salvation, the sanctuary, and Riverside Park. But I remember when, I mean, the shift to come here wasn't easy. And I remember with Kari, we would be here we have an office upstairs, looking at this garden, looking at the flower, looking at the monkeys. And we said, how do you work from here? Because there is a need, we are used to some level of stress. You need some level of stress to work. So how do you work when everything it's a much more simple life? And we're finding it. And that has been one of the most incredible paradigm shifts. Finding a work rhythm. You know, I opened my consulting room as a therapist, and I'm working a lot and teaching and we were doing retreats before COVID. We managed to do 4, God willing, one day. And Karina is working with you in this project, and also she's having a grant. She's doing a grant of educational grant. But it's interesting because I felt, how do you produce without the energy that a city generates? And that's, I would say, one of the most important challenges that somebody has to shift from a place like New York to a place to like Ecovilla. And everybody, and I would say this is not for everybody also. You know, I know many people who, you know, this would not be for them. But Kari, other questions? Where's Karina?
There is a question that came through Instagram.
Through Instagram, yes.
And this question is for Marcelo Valansi.
Of course.
What is the ideal size, numbers of inhabitants, of an ecovilla? Is there one?
Yeah, I feel that about 60 families, that represents about 200 people, is the maximum size community you can build without losing this intimacy, this connection, knowing who your neighbors are, and truly know them deeply as we know our neighbors. Ecovilla is about 45 families, more or less, and that represents about 170, 180 people, including kids, and it is a very, very sweet number.
So that's why in the land where Casasula is, you're envisioning really like 5 different ecovillas, correct?
Yeah,
each one
5,
with their
6,
own,
7. I don't have the number yet of how many villages.
but each one of them with their own center.
With own center, with own amenities and everything, and they will be bigger areas where they can socialize between the different communities, but always keeping the intimacy and the number that doesn't go above like 60 families. It's like 40, 50 for me is a sweet spot. 60 you are pushing it, going more than that.
It's a town.
You lose that.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, there's a question in Spanish.
Can you come closer? Yes.
There's a question in Spanish that I'm going to translate in English. Is it possible, Marcelo Valansi, to have an ecovilla close to a city, for example, like in Buenos Aires?
Yeah, for sure, it's possible to having eco-villages. Sometimes, whenever you develop closer to the cities, usually the land is more expensive, so you cannot live so much green areas or protection areas as you would want, as from the business development standpoint. But it's completely possible to do it, and having many of the things that happen in Ecovilla in an urban or semi-urban environment.
Yes.
Another question, also coming through Instagram. Do you find that the government is supportive, national and local?
I find that the government is very supportive on this development. The local the local government requested if they could be the godfather of this project, because they would like to show it as the kind of development they would like to see happening here. And as well for the local, the national government, the federal government. They are really like an incentive this kind of development, because they saw so many people, they come to Costa Rica seeking that connection, and the developers, they only know one formula on how to develop. So it's very hard for them to meet their dream when they come, and there is nothing like it. So they would really like to see more projects like Ecovia happening all over.
Beautiful. Cari, any other question?
Not at this time.
Also, Ecovia is located in a very rural area. And part of being in a very rural and poor area, it's the possibility of interacting of so many people that make their income remotely, and that they can employ, we made a calculation that between Ecovia and Casasula, we are employing between 350 to 400 families, that they work in the school, that they work in Ecovia, that they sell their products, from eggs to organic chickens to ice cream, there's so much benefit to the broader community that brings a lot of employment in areas that there are not that many offers.
That's beautiful.
I have another question.
Okay.
Sorry. There's somebody that would like to know more about the elderly living here. Like, what ages are in Ecovia?
Yeah, we have in La Ecovia ages from newborns to 85. 85, I think it's now.
It's the oldest.
It's the oldest person we have living here, and it's incredible how they feel so alive and so happy of having so many ages, and being the elder, the wise, and participating and feeling younger for having younger people around.
Beautiful. So I believe this is, at least as the first conversation. Do you feel, Cari, anything else that we haven't covered? That
There are a few more questions, but as you want.
okay.
Maybe
One more? We do two more? What do you think, Marcel? Okay. How long have we been?
Almost an hour.
Almost an
No,
hour.
an hour and 3 minutes.
Okay, so
So one last question.
shoot.
So through Facebook, how are the eco-villages managed once they are operating? What kind of input is solicited from the residents?
So the way the legal structure that we use in La Ecovia, and what I was explaining about not trying to reinvent the wheel, we did a condominium. A condominium structure in Costa Rica is like a subdivision in the US, and pretty much it means that every homeowner in La Ecovia owns their lot. So whenever we sold the lots, and they build their houses, and with their lot, they can go to a bank, apply for a loan, they can do many things, and they are part owner of all the common areas. In the case of La Ecovia, 70% of the land is communal area, between the reserves, the areas around the river, the streets where we grow the food, the common areas represent 70% of the land. And in that 30% of the land, we put a restriction, and part of that, like the county gave us 75% coverage, and we reduced it to 25%. So there are more green areas that you can see. So right now, if you look in Google Earth or something, Ecovia used to look like the property next door, that you will see a cow farm, and now you will see a beautiful coverage of forest that is around that, and you see some points that are the houses. So the decision making, there is a homeowners association that we meet once a year, and we elect different committees that are volunteered by neighbors of the community, and they run the village. They take care of different aspects. Some they take care about construction and architecture, some they take care of administrative stuff, some they take care about the permaculture, green areas, food production, and there was a very active committee that was called the community committee that was in charge of all the fun activities that were happening all the time. Now with COVID, it's not as active.
It's not active
as it used to. So yeah.
Just an anecdote about that. You know, when we moved, we were transient. I mean, still part-time in New York and part-time here. And also Karina was working in the States, and she was traveling. And so one year was my birthday, and Karina wasn't here. She was in the States. So Marcelo says to me, it's Friday. My birthday was on Friday. I celebrate Shabbat, so Shabbat dinner. And so at 3 p.m. he says to me, so you're coming for Shabbat dinner at home? We celebrate your birthday? Yes, yes. So it's 3:30. He calls me back again. He says, Marcelo, many people want to celebrate you. So why don't we do the Shabbat dinner and potluck in the rancho? I said, it's 3:30 now. You know, you wanted at 6:30. Don't worry, let's do it. So he organized it. You know, we have a WhatsApp for this thing. 75 people showed up with amazing food. And it was beautiful. You know, it was a little bit of Shabbat, a little bit of celebration. And I would say, I can only imagine to organize a party for 75 people in 3 hours. And cost zero, by the way. So it was really an incredible experience. So I want to say thank you, Marce, for your love, for your passion, for creating this place that now we call home. We have many other homes. Some of us are, you know, have related to places, to cities that we love, to people that we love. And for me, many people don't understand how come I shifted from living in New York to living in eco-village, you know, in the mountain. I have all my life the craving to live in nature, and to bring people to do spiritual work in nature, and to bring people to do retreats in nature, and to do therapeutic work, spiritual therapeutic work in nature. So I wanted to dedicate the last years of my working life, God willing, not so short, to do that. So I'm grateful to you.
I'm very grateful for you and Kari to be here. You guys are family to us, and I'm so happy to have you here. The only thing I'm concerned is about, like, what people are gonna start doing conspiracy theories against you for living in New York right at the time that COVID started.
Yeah, some people think, you know this, you know about the political situation. No, I didn't know anything. I'm not the prophet, I didn't know anything. Guys, thank you so much for being with us. Maybe we'll do another conversation, and lots of love. Thank you, Marce. And sorry if there were some technical issues, or maybe there were not. So wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm going to post it. You can watch it at any time. Wait.